Hey friends, it's John again. How you doing? I've got to tell you, I am not at all comfortable doing these live videos. I'd much prefer to make a video and then have a look at it and then think about it and then post it. But I've been told by quite a few people, but these live gigs, let's give it a go, hey? Yesterday I was sharing about how I ended up crossing that thin red line from heavy social drinking into active addiction and some of the trouble it caused. Now is not the forum to talk about that. We all have our stories of pain. We all have our stories of how we ended up being here. Mine is a tale of, it's not that unusual. We all experience trauma and pain in our lives, and mine was such that I wasn't able to not even understand that pain is a normal process of life. However, as the Buddha said, suffering is optional. I was yet to understand what that meant, because I'd crossed that thin red line to do active addiction. It set the tone for the next 2 or 3 years of just really, really, really messy times. And I shared with you very briefly that then, and still now, I was surrounded by some really extraordinarily powerful women. At that stage was my mum, my sister, and who I call now a future ex-girlfriend, because shortly into the future she was going to be an ex-girlfriend. But the three of them had conspired. They could see that I was in pain. They could see that I was hurting. They could see that the drinking I was doing and the trouble that it had caused in my life was causing a lot of trouble. Not only paining me, yet unrecognised, but it was deeply paining them. Can you imagine a loved one slowly killing themselves in front of them? And so my mother, very, very, very kindly, but at the same time, very, very cunningly and very sort of connivingly, if you will. I'll tell you what, Mum should work in advertising, because what I bought that day, I bought hook, line and sinker, because they all got me at a weak moment. Mum took me out for breakfast, and just down in DY, and we went down to Brekkie down there, and g'day Josh, nice to see you. Hi Michelle. And we went down to Brekkie and DY, and Mum sat me down and she said, "You're really tired, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah, you know what, I am, Mum. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired." We hear that. We hear that in the rooms of recovery. I don't know if you've heard that, but being sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was sick and tired. And I was sick. I was physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally just bereft and unable to understand that the issues that I had in my life were a representation of my drinking. You know what? I used to say to people, well, you would drink as much as I do if you had the problems that I had. Not recognising that the reason I had all the problems was because I was drinking so much. And you know what? If I had that backwards, what else did I have backwards? So Mum got me at this moment. You're sick and tired, aren't you? And I said, yeah, I am. And this was in 1994. This was in June, beginning of June 1994. And I was just about to be 29 years old, and Mum said to me, you know what, there's this new hospital that's opened up in Curl, which is a beautiful suburb on the northern beaches here in Sydney. And there's this new hospital that's opened up there. Maybe you want to go in there for a bit of a rest. Now, having a rest in my mind, I had a picture in my head that I was going into this place, into this facility, and I was thinking there was going to be a bit of a holiday farm, that I would learn perhaps to drink like a normal person, that I would be able to rest and eat well. What I didn't realise, that I was heading into what is now Australia's leading treatment centre. It was my first foray into, for the first time, being introduced to John. For the first time, being introduced to the concept of the disease process of alcoholism. And it was also the first time that people, well-meaning people, shared with me that maybe, John, you are suffering from a disease called alcoholism. Now, I've shared with you what I was like. I told you how fragile my ego was. I thought that I was king shit, but at the same time I didn't feel very good about myself. The way that my ego would hear this information, the way that my ego would process this information, is that it would take on board, and they were attacking me. They were saying, oh, you're an alcoholic. Now, I had a picture in my mind of what an alcoholic was. An alcoholic to me then, in my mind, was the old man, dirty, smelling of urine, dressed in a duffel coat with a bottle of Brandavino slipping out of the newspapers, not understanding that that encompasses about half of 1% of the amount of people out there who actually suffer from alcoholism. Now, because those two pictures didn't fit together, I had a picture of me, I had a picture of that. Because those two pictures didn't fit together, there was no way in the world that I was only going to be able to trust the process and avail myself to what was then available using a model that the hospital used and the introduction to the 12-step recovery movement. And I wasn't available. I didn't allow myself to hear. I treated the actual program like it was a going to uni and I'm going to do a course. Now I was in there for 5 weeks, and it was in that 5 weeks that, not availing myself to what was available, that I was beginning to get better. When somebody puts a drink down and they're in a safe facility, physically, they're going to get better very quickly. I got better physically, very, very better. Very, very better. That doesn't. I got better very, very quickly. But up here, I was still absolutely cooked, not able to understand that the program that was available would be able to help me. I was unavailable. I was extraordinarily immature, and I treated that as a uni degree, as a TAFE course, if you will, and I was in there for 5 weeks, and I did not do any of the suggested things. It is suggested to newly sober people that they do meetings, that they find themselves surrounded by people who will encourage and support them and begin to avail themselves to the 12 steps. I didn't do any of that. Now, I was in for 35 days. Now, what I'm about to share with you is exactly what killed Amy Winehouse. We all know what happened to her. She put her drug of choice down the day before. She went to rehab. She was in rehab for 28 days, not using. The day that she got out, she used the same amount as she did the day before she went in, and it killed her. We all know that. What I did, now I've got to tell you, at the end of my drinking then, my go-to drink was a 6-pack of beer and half a bottle of vodka. That's what I would drink before 10 o'clock in the morning just to get me going. So in my mind, that was my go-to drink, not taking into account that I hadn't had a drink for 6 weeks. Now, I'd gotten out. I'm out for 6 days, and all of a sudden the fuck it switch went off. Fuck it. I can't do this. I cannot do it. I got a call from a mate of mine. Mick and I are playing some pool down in Kirribilli. Do you want to come down? Now, I've got to preface what I'm about to share with you with this. We will always get messages. God, source, spirit, the universe, whatever you want to call it, will always speak through others. And I had been given messages multiple times, but every now and then I need to be brought to my knees. And I tell you what, God came knocking that day. That day that I drank again, in the space of 4 hours, not only did I drink, but I lost my licence after drink driving and nearly knocking 2 policemen off their motorcycles. I was arrested. The girl I was living with left. The real estate agent that was leasing me the property reneged on the lease, and I had to move back in with my mother. So how do you suppose the pain of that was going to go? I've shared with you, the only way I knew how to deal with the pain of that was not immersing myself in what was available, but to continue to drink. I continued to drink. At that stage, I'm living down the Southern Highlands. And the Southern Highlands is one of the most beautiful spots in the world, but it was winter. And winter down there is even more beautiful. But because I was drinking and feeling so ashamed, unrecognised, that I was unavailable, only able to keep drinking. Got myself a job, fell back into the hospitality industry, working for a guy who then drank more than I. And isn't it funny how these people moving in those circles seem to attract each other? And he actually said to me, John, for you to run the restaurant, I'm happy for you to work here. You can drink as much as you like, as long as, number one, it doesn't affect your work, and secondly, as long as you replace what you're drinking. Now, I would think, Jesus, he drinks a lot, so that must mean that I'm okay. See that kooky frame of reference? Within the space of a month, he was coming to me and goes, Jesus, John, you're drinking a lot. Still, the light didn't go off in that space there. We're back. It's 1995, and the two very well-meaning friends would introduce me to a girl that was to change my life. And we came together through, as I said, a couple of mutual friends, and this particular girl, we've actually known each other since school. We didn't have very much to do with each other. She was the school sports superstar. I was the school clown. We didn't have very much to do with each other. But 29, nearly 30 years old, we met again, and we came together like two little peas in a pod. I'll tell you what, we put the fun into dysfunction. And 11 days after we met, I asked Mandy to marry me. I'll tell you, she must have been drunk, because she said yes. 11 months after that we were married, and 6 months after that our twin boys were born. So you can imagine barreling down the highway of life at 4 and a boulder rolls out in front of you. All hell's going to break loose. You know what? And all hell broke loose before all that happened. Mandy had a trip booked away into the States to go skiing for a couple of weeks, and we're living together. We're living together in the most beautiful, one of the most beautiful parts in the world. We're living up the Central Coast, looking after a pole home for a friend of ours. He got posted overseas, and it's 90 stairs up to the house. That's hard enough to associate up sober, let alone coming down when you're pissed. But Mandy had that trip booked away, and I thought to myself, well, what am I going to do? I'm on my own, and I'm going to drink, have the biggest party, because inherently I know that when she comes back, I'm going to have to get myself together. You know what? There's a little bit more information that I need to tell you, but I think for today, that is enough. I will share with you tomorrow what was when Mandy found out actually how much I was drinking. That there was really, really interesting. So thanks guys for joining us. What do we got? Johns, good to see you, mate. Brendan, Robin, Amanda. Oh, she's right here. And Ken, good to see you guys. Listen, thanks so much for listening. I'll catch you again tomorrow, eh? Let's see if I can figure out how to turn this off. All right, much love, people. Catch you soon, hey? Bye now.